Welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. In this podcast, we talk about books, interview authors, and we discuss their journey to becoming published. Each one has a different but amazing story. My hope is to encourage people to keep reading good books and to help authors find their audience and inspire everyone in their journey, whatever that might be. Welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. Welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. Today I have a special guest with us. Her name is Felicity Green, and she's the author of the Scottish Witches Mystery Series. It is a series that is definitely on my TBR list to be reading this summer. According to her bio, she's a German native and has spent over a decade in England studying English literature and drama and pursuing her dream of becoming an actress. She toured the British Isles with a theater group and fell in love with all those magical places in England, Scotland, and Ireland that continue to inspire her novels. So I'm excited to see what she has for us today. So welcome, Felicity, to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Also meant to add that you have an MA in creative writing from the University of Sussex. So yes. You're bringing a lot of skills to the table as you sit down to write these books.
Yeah, although I'm not sure how much the MA in creative writing influenced my, writing genre fiction, because we did study a lot of other things than cozy mysteries. But it definitely was a lot of fun. It was one of the best times of my life to do this creative writing MA. It was great.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to hearing all about your books and your journey and all that. But can you tell us a little bit about what your books are about and some of the characters we'll meet in the stories?
Sure. So the Scottish Witches Mysteries is a paranormal cozy mystery series, and it's set in Scotland, in the Scottish Highlands, in a small place called Tarbet. It's on the shore of Loch Lomond. Every book of the series, there's a different witch with a different magical talent as the protagonist. And she has a magical adventure, and there's always another protagonist who sort of stumbles across this community of witches. And the story really goes from there.
Okay.
First book is called The Witch Club. Mm-hmm. And the witch in this book is called Andy, and she has visions. And so like every witch has a different sort of magical skill, I guess.
Yeah. The tagline for the Witch Club there, it says, "A creepy inn, missing men. When only her new employee believes her, can she foil a pagan plot before she ends up dead." So it sounds very intriguing.
Yeah. The first book in the series is it's sort of a lead-in into the magical world. The later books in the series, we have much more magic. So really, it starts off more as a cozy mystery, and then magic is sort of introduced as the main character, the other main character, Desi, sort of discovers this coven, which she obviously doesn't know is a coven, but she has her suspicions that there's some dark pagan rituals going on, and that this woman called Mrs. MacDonald could be responsible for the disappearance of her husband during their honeymoon 10 years ago, which is what she's sort of obsessed with, and which is why she stayed in Tarbet and opened her own B&B, so she can find out what happened to her husband who disappeared.
So each book has a different main character. So you can really read any book you want out of order, or do you have to read them in order?
You can, especially the first 3 books, but I would recommend from that point on, the 4th book, that some secrets are revealed, and you'd sort of maybe spoil some of the nice anticipation going on in books 1, 2, and 3. But I do have readers who discover book 3 seems to be really popular. It's called Cooking Up a Witch, and it's a sort of a bit culinary mystery, a touch of culinary cozy mystery, and people seem to really like that and like the cover. So I have a lot of readers discovered my series with book 3, and they're sort of working their way back. And you can definitely read book 2 and book 3 if you haven't read book 1. But from that point on, I would probably suggest you read the first books. You start in the beginning because
Yeah.
you just it's a bit of a shame if you already know the mysteries.
Right.
Um, and also, I mean, every book is about a different witch, but the other characters do reappear because it's a coven. So
Sure.
they all, come back and I mean, that's the sort of small town setting, cozy mystery, small town setting with a coven. It's enjoyable to meet the characters again and see what they're up to. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I guess, a kind of a fresh approach. Most series follows one protagonist, but this, I like that idea of just bringing in several and you can kind of rotate them around, I suppose.
yeah, I
Yeah.
had the idea from romance books really, because
Mm.
often romance book series that you have two characters, the man and the woman usually meeting, and then they're in a small town and there's other characters in the second book who are um, love match is the center of the plot. So and I
Hmm.
have to say, and somebody asked me this before, and I have to be really honest about this. I wrote this series in German in 2016, the first book, I think. And I didn't know that much about tropes at the time. Sometimes I mean, and now I know that a lot of the cozy mystery series are have follow one character, and every book is a new adventure for that character.
Hmm.
And although, I mean, I used to read a lot, even at that time, but those sorts of series, but it didn't really occur to me. I just thought, oh, maybe it's also because I like something fresh and new. I like to do different series and or different genres. That's just my preference as a writer.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a little bit boring for me as a writer if I would just write one series with the same main character.
Mm.
That just doesn't interest me as much. But the real reason is that I didn't write to market at all. I just wrote what I enjoyed writing. So
Well, I've interviewed a lot of authors, and it really seems like when the books are clicking and are really working, it's when they're writing what they love,
mhm.
and maybe not necessarily writing for a particular market on purpose. When you're writing what you love, it's got to be an enjoyable experience to just be able to create that and follow your I guess your dream in that sense, the or your vision, however you view it there, creating these worlds. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do worry about it sometimes. I mean, when you then market the books, you wonder,
Mm.
oh no, readers will be like, oh, that's not a proper cozy mystery. And I do get, in reviews, people say, but most people like that it's a little bit different, like
Sure.
it differentiates it from other series. So
Yeah.
I worried about it at the beginning, but now I think it's okay.
Oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, you're always going to get that person say this isn't exactly like all the others. How dare you? But I think there's such a strong market right now. There's room for some different approaches. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about your writing journey in general. How did you become a writer? Was that like a lifelong dream of yours, or how did that all come together for you?
I always loved books. I mean, I was always a reader. I used to get out all the books from the local library, even when I was a child, and I
Hmm.
loved reading. And I also always liked, I mean, I was always a storyteller for sure. And I also I remember starting to write a book when I was like 14 or something. That didn't go very far. But I always wanted to become an actress. That was my big dream. And so that's really what I tried to do. But there was always this love for writing, which is why and reading, which is why I also studied English literature and not just drama. And I did a creative writing course in my undergraduate degree as well. And I loved acting, but what I didn't like about it was that I sort of depended on others to let me do the acting. Like I had
Hmm.
to be cast in something. And then also I couldn't really, I mean, you can't really choose as a budding actress, you have to sort of take the jobs that you get.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I wanted a bit more control. So I started writing my own plays, and I wrote a one-woman show for the Brighton Fringe Festival, and then I produced it and I acted in it. And afterwards, I was totally burned out because it was
Mm.
so much work. But I
Hmm.
realized what I enjoyed most about it was the writing. And from that point on, I've never acted again. So
Okay.
I started writing and I applied for this creative writing masters, and then I wrote I studied writing. Started to write short stories. I had some short stories published in anthologies, and then I met my husband, who's German, and so I moved to Germany, to the German-Swiss border, and I started working in publishing in Zurich.
Hmm.
And then after working in sort of small publishing companies, I decided I'd rather work for myself. And I worked as a freelance translator and editor. And that was 2012. And that was the time when um, lots of American, US, mainly US authors started doing translations. Indie authors started doing translations. It was a really big thing at the time because self-publishing was already really big in the US. And then, it sort of spread and there was a huge market for translations. And I worked for Amazon Crossing as a translator, translating indie books.
Hmm.
And I realized that's so cool. I mean, I worked in publishing. I know how hard it is to publish a book, to find a publisher, to find an agent. I knew how hard that would be, but I also had experience in marketing books, and I knew sort of what to do. And so I decided, well, I can do that too, and I started writing my own books. And that was 2015. I published my first book, and I wrote many more. I
Hmm.
think I have about 35 books published in German now,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
now four in English.
Right.
And I'm working on a new series which is written in English, and I want to stay within the cozy mystery genre because
Sure.
I've written in different genres in German, in also more urban fantasy, some more young adult stuff. But
Hmm.
I realized this sort of mysteries is this my jam, so that's what
Yeah.
I want to stay there. So
Yeah. No, great. What I love about your story is how you kind of pursue one thing, you're pursuing the acting and then it leads you to find something else and that thing that really helps you to flourish. I've seen that happen countless times, not just, with myself, but others. And you start out, I think I'm going to start out doing this, but then you end up over here and you're much happier. And it's just fun how that road takes you in different directions sometimes.
yeah, and I do some recently I have been thinking a lot about this, and I thought, is this a failed dream, or is this just I grew as a person and then I realized what I really want to do in life,
Hmm.
you sort of loop back sometimes, but I think it's definitely what makes me happy and what where I feel most comfortable with, and I couldn't imagine anything else really.
You said when you were younger, you read a lot. That's something I see in common with a lot of writers. What were some of your favorite books to read when you were younger? And
Oh my God. I didn't prepare for that
oh,
question.
oh, okay. Well, sometimes,
Oh my
so,
God. I don't know. I literally read everything that I could
yeah.
get my hands on, everything. But I mean, there was a certain age when I used to read detective stories,
Hmm.
like private detective
Hmm.
stories, or where children would be detectives. And I always used to love adventure stories like Famous Five, and there was Enid Blyton's Twins of St. Clair was really it's an boarding school series, two
Yeah.
girls and boarding school. I used to love that sort of thing. So but really I would read everything. We had this really I grew up in a village, and we had the sort of the village schoolhouse, the library, the children's library, and it was one room. And I remember that I read like every book in this room, and so I had to graduate to the next town to the big library to get
Yeah.
books out there. So I was
Yeah.
just reading all of the time. My mother tells the story of when we went on holiday to California, and we were driving along the coast in a motorhome, and there was this lovely scenery and, great, but I was in the back reading a book, not even looking out of the window. So I was always reading.
Yep, I've been there. I've done that. Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of the same as a reader, and my parents would be like, "Go outside." So I take my book and go outside,
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
not what I
yeah.
meant. But yeah. What was directly your inspiration for this Scottish Witches mystery series? I guess what led you to create that series?
It's actually a good story. So,
Yeah.
I went on honeymoon with my husband, and so that it's basically the plot of the novel that happened to me, happens to Desi in the
Mm-hmm.
novel, and well, kind of. We hiked the West Highland Way on our honeymoon, and we completely underestimated we overestimated our hiking abilities. So it was
Uh-huh.
really difficult carrying everything on our backs. And on the third day, we came to Rowadennan Youth Hostel, and like completely, like we're there. That's so good. We're there. We made it, and then they had no rooms,
Oh
and the
no.
next accommodation was really far away, and we would have never made it there. But luckily, there was a water taxi that went from Rowadennan Youth Hostel across Loch Lomond to Tarbet, and that was not on our planned route. But I saw in the guidebook that there were lots of B&Bs there, so I was really hopeful that we would find a place to stay for the night. But by the time we got there, it was already really late. It was raining, and everywhere, everybody just told us, no, we don't have any vacancies. So
Mm.
we're really down. And somebody said, "Oh, why don't you check Mrs. McDonald up the hill there? She usually has a spare room." And so we're like, "Okay." So we went to knock at Mrs. McDonald's house, and the woman who opened the door really looked like a witch.
Mm.
Um, like black hair standing up in all directions, and she was really nice though. But we came in, and it wasn't really a B&B. It was two rooms in her house. And we
Mm-hmm.
shared the bathroom with her, and it was like really old-fashioned. And it had this really strange atmosphere. And I just imagined what scenario could happen in a place like that. And so I came up with the story that, like Desi in the novel, the same thing happens to her. And the next morning, when she wakes up in that B&B, her husband is gone.
Mm.
So that's the mystery.
That's the mystery. All right.
But my husband was still there the next
Okay.
morning, and
Okay.
he's
Good.
still happily married. So all is good.
Okay. He hasn't gone suspiciously missing or anything.
No.
Good. Good. Uh, so in your writing journey, what challenges have you faced that you've been able to overcome, and how did you go about doing that?
Oh, many challenges, I think, but one that comes to mind, especially as we're talking about my translations, is that I tried to publish my first translations my first English books in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, looking back, I can see what I did wrong, but at the time, you just do what you do, and it was a big, big failure. So that was really hard for me, because it was always my dream to have my books in English as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did at the time is I published a new series that I wrote the series in English, but wasn't it was a genre that I wouldn't write in again. It was really um, young adult, I'd say,
Mm-hmm.
fantasy. And I later translated this it was a series of novellas into German, and it's my worst selling German series as well. So it just didn't really do well and in English it didn't do well. But it was a time when there weren't that many opportunities. Like there wasn't Amazon ads, or I didn't really know how to reach readers across the pond. That was the biggest thing. For me, I need to sort of connect with my readers in some way.
Hmm.
I can't just, drop a book and then place some ads and then hope somebody reads that. It doesn't feel
Right.
good to me. And so obviously that's not going to work for me. So, but it was a big failure, and it took me a long time to pick myself up again. And then I realized I probably should not just publish any book, but my best books in English. So,
Right.
and so I tried again, and luckily this time everything went really well. So,
Well, good. That's great. Everyone's challenges they face are different, and the things they face. But it's I think every author would say, man, if I had something I could tell my younger self, it would be this. And I'm sure you're the same. You could go back in time and say, hey, learn this lesson.
definitely.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I think you've got to fail
Hmm.
sometimes to learn and then do better the next time. And the longer I'm a writer, the more, a self-publishing writer, I realize that that's what it is.
Yeah.
You make mistakes, but you try again. And lots of writers that I started that were publishing don't publish anymore and have given up. And I think that's really what it is to keep going
Hmm.
and to try and improve and not to give up, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, now you get to do what you love doing, and there's
Yes.
nothing better than that.
Yeah.
Well, I like to also talk to my guests about books and what they're reading and any recommendations. So we heard a little bit about what you like to read as a kid. How about now as a grown up? What are some of your favorite books, and do you have any recommendations for us?
My favorite books, I would say, I love Charlaine Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, I, the first books I read was the Sookie Stackhouse series, but I also really like the Aurora Teagarden books. And Kelley Armstrong is also one of my favorite authors. And I was lucky enough to meet Kelley Armstrong at a writer's retreat she did. So I just really love her books. And she writes in every genre. So, but the Women of the Other World series is, of course, it's still like one of my favorites. But so that's sort of like what my favorite books. But the books I really wanted to recommend are some other books that I recently read,
Mm-hmm.
that are also set in Scotland, that are also sort of magical cozy mysteries, but not sort of the paranormal cozy mysteries with sassy witch characters with lots of magic and lots of different creatures,
Mm-hmm.
but more like the Club or the Scottish Witches Mysteries, more cozy paranormal cozy mysteries with just magic in it. And that's one of them is from Paige Shelton, the Scottish Bookshop Mysteries. That's a nice sort of series. It's set in Edinburgh, and it's an a young American woman who comes over answering a wanted ad, where somebody is looking for someone to work in their shop to sell sort of special rare books and manuscripts. And she discovers this magical manuscripts, but
Mm-hmm.
also she tries to solve a murder. So it's you know. Um, and the
Yeah.
other one is also set in Scotland, and that's the Amanda Flower um, Magical Garden series. And that's also it's also not on the nose magic. It's also just a small community in Scotland where she comes there, she inherits a cottage, and it's got this enchanted garden. So that's really and there's a
Oh.
murder. So
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I was about to say it sounds lovely, except for the murder part.
exactly.
All
But those
right.
are like similar, a little bit similar to my books in some ways, and they're really entertaining. So I can really
Yeah.
recommend.
I was just looking up Amanda Flower because I don't know if I've read her. Looks like she's got several series going on.
I think she has lots of series. I think she's most famous for her Amish, is it Amish you say?
Amish, yeah.
Amish.
Hmm. Yeah.
Amish cozy mysteries.
Sure. Yeah, I see those. But yeah, Paige Shelton, I actually just read the first one in that series
Mm.
last year, maybe late
Okay.
last year. Yeah, but I recognized it. Yeah, that was a fun read. That's what I love about Cozies is just when they're set in places outside of where I live. You know, it's like I can travel a little
Yeah.
bit, you know, and get to see new places and do new things and try to solve a murder before the hero does, which I never do. So
But it would be boring otherwise, wouldn't
right, right.
it?
So sometimes I can kind of guess, but I cannot tell you why. So and then the detective puts it all together, and I'm like, oh, of course, now it makes sense. You know, I'll get it one of these days. I just tend when I read mysteries, I don't try to figure it out in a sense. Like I do, like I'm trying to like, oh, what's happening next, or who did this, and what does this all mean? But I'm kind of just there in the moment and being taken along for the ride, and then I know others are completely different. You know, they're trying to put the clues together and figure this out, and I figure I'll let the detective or the main character solve it for me. I'll just come along for the ride and enjoy the
Just sit
trip.
in the sidecar.
That's right. Yeah. If I were in a cozy mystery, I'd be the plucky sidekick. You know.
Well, I do love a good puzzle, but
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing about cozy mysteries is I think that you sort of, I don't know, you sort of come into this setting that you like or that you
Hmm.
can explore. And I mean, sure, there's a puzzle or there's a mystery, but really you enjoy the main character. It's like a best friend sort of type of character, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you sort of explore or figure this out with them, and that's nice, isn't it? So
Yeah. There's a couple of series that I read that enjoy. One is not a cozy mystery, but it's the Harry Dresden series
oh yeah.
by Jim Butcher. You know, it's urban fantasy and all that. But I've been reading his books since there were only like 3 or 4 out, and now there's 15, 16, 17. I don't know how many now, but I just love that series, and I can't wait to get a new one. And I'm like, all right, you know, get to hang out with Harry Dresden again, and that's a fun series for those who don't know it. He's Harry Dresden's a wizard, but then he also will, at least in the early books, especially, he was kind of solving mysteries while trying to be a wizard at the same time in Chicago, and it's a lot of fun. So
Also a really unique series, isn't it? I think it's
yeah,
really it's its own thing in a way.
it really is. I mean, it shares some similarities to, you know, your urban fantasy setting, but it really is its own kettle of fish. You know, I love it when genres mash up, you know, when you get like a fantasy and mystery, or one of my favorites are if you can combine science fiction with like a Western. That I love
Okay.
that. It's weird. I don't know. Something about the mashing the two genres together just elevates the story. It's a lot of fun.
I like
Um,
that too. Yeah, I do that a lot as well. I
yeah.
recently read my last German book was a fairy tale domestic suspense thriller. So
Oh,
mashing up fairy tale and domestic suspense. It was great fun.
yeah. There's this cozy mystery series, and I'm trying to think of what the book. Oh, Shady Hollow, I think is what it's called. Is the series. It's a cozy mystery, and it's set in almost like an animal fairy tale. You know, where the animals are people kind of thing. I'm not
Oh,
sure I'm going to
okay.
describe this right. It's a series by Juno Black, and the first book is called Shady Hollow. But the main character is a fox, and I think she's a reporter for the newspaper. So it's kind of like that. Animals are anthropomorphized. The local detective is a bear. You know, he's a like a grizzly bear, and so it's like a cozy mystery set in an animal world. I don't know. It works. It's really
That
fun.
sounds really interesting. I've never heard of that. I have to check that out.
Yeah, yeah. There's 5 books in the series. I think the fifth one just came out or was about to be come out this summer. But yeah, it's such a unique twist on that, and it reminds me of like fairy tales. You know, when you have the
Mhm.
animals that can talk and all
Yeah.
that. But they're just solving mysteries, I guess. So,
Right.
uh,
I mean, usually you
yeah,
only have like shapeshifter type animals, but this
right.
one is just the animals. That's great.
Yep, yep. I don't know what they did with the people, but that's a good one. And then I really like cozy mysteries that are set in like a bakery or some kind of
Mhm.
setting like that, because that's where I like to hang out. You know, I'm going to go down to the bakery and have a donut and drink some coffee and maybe solve a crime. I don't know.
Yeah. So do you like the ones with recipes in it, or does it just
Yeah,
need to be a set in? Yeah, you like that.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to have recipes, but it's always fun to have them, in the back of the book. And
Hmm.
I recommend this series all the time. Maybe folks are getting tired of it, but it's by Darcy Hannah, and it's the Beacon Bakehouse series. I think it's what it's called.
Okay.
And it takes place in Michigan State here in the United States. It's in a lighthouse. She owns a lighthouse and has a bakery in it. And then up in the top of the lighthouse, there's a ghost who lives there, and,
Oh,
and and the ghost is not like a main character or anything. He very subtly appears or disappears, usually when there's trouble. If they see like ghostly lights up in the top of the lighthouse, there's that means, oh, the town's in trouble. So there's probably a murder somewhere or
all
something. And
right. That sounds
uh,
really interesting.
yeah, yeah. But she writes good mysteries, good world building, and fantastic recipes. It's just a combination of all three that are really, really fun. I
My
had a
own
chance.
problem is that if I have the
Mhm.
recipes, I want to bake the baked goods and then I'm going to eat them all. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. My doctor told me I need to maybe stop doing that. you know, I don't cook a lot, but I do like to try to cook like treats and desserts and
Mhm.
things. That's kind of my
Yeah.
favorite. That's my comfort food. So
Yeah, me too. I love
to
I love baking as well. So.
yeah, yeah. Do you have some favorite treat that you like to bake?
I like anything with cinnamon. So like
Mm.
cinnamon rolls, or I have this sort of cinnamon raisin bread that's really
Hmm.
lovely. One of the series that just came to mind that I also love is called Aunt Dimity. Do you know the Nancy Atherton Aunt Dimity series? It's also
Yeah.
set in England,
Hmm.
and there's always a sort of special baked treat in the book. She doesn't publish them usually, I think, at the back, but you can get them on her website. I think they might be in the print editions, and I have this cinnamon raisin bread from one of her books, and it's really delicious.
Yeah. Cinnamon rolls are probably my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Like if I had to give up every other kind of bakery treat, I would fight it. But cinnamon rolls,
Mhm.
no, I'm dying with one in my hand. Okay. Yeah. I like to make there. It's like a turtle brownie with extra caramel kind of drizzled on top, and it's basically like a brownie with the peanuts, or not peanuts, walnuts and caramel on it, and I don't know. It's just really good. I throw in extra chocolate chips in it. I love chocolate. I mean, I'm a
That
chocoholic.
sounds really sweet.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. You want to make sure you have some coffee with it to kind of counteract. Yeah, that's really good. And then I like baking cookies and different kinds of cookies. So yeah, so I'm at home in a bakery when I read about them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really fun. I do like that too. I think there's lots of sort of culinary cozy
Hmm.
fans, and I get asked that question because of Cooking Up a Witch. It features some magical recipes.
Mm, okay.
And I do sometimes publish there are some books where I publish recipes, not in this series so far. But I do sometimes feature them in my newsletter. So if something comes up, because I also like I mean I really like to delve into sort of the culture when I write a book. So I research Scottish baking, Scottish treats, and so they feature and those recipes sort of feature in my books. But and then I sometimes have them in my newsletter and or on my website. So
Yeah.
I might put them in a book, in the back of a book sometime.
Great. Well, looking ahead for you, you said you're going to be working more on writing more in the series.
I just finished the fifth book. It's with the editor right now. It's called Witch in a Tempest, and it's out in August.
All right.
And the German series only has 7 books and a couple of novellas. Really, the sixth book is the sort of final, it sort of wraps up everything. But I decided I'm going to push this sixth book in the future. And because I still have a couple of novellas, and I am thinking of, I just started translation of one novella, and I'm thinking of making more books in the English series, because there's so much potential with the different witches that are turning up. But I also like to mix it up. I don't like to stay in one series for too long, because I have so many ideas. And I started writing another paranormal cozy mystery series, which is set in England in the Cotswolds, and it's about a ghost photographer. So a photographer who can capture ghosts and film, and it's sort of it leads to her figuring out why somebody died and all that kind of stuff. So I started writing this a year ago. And then I really got into translating the series, and so I never really got very far with it. But I really want to finish this over the summer, and I'm pushing the Scottish Witches with the other translations a bit further into the future. So that's my next series. And I've also written short stories. They're in an anthology. The last one was the Cozy Mystery Tribe anthology, and it's also a short story tied in to the Scottish Witches Mysteries. It's called the anthology is called The Hysteria of Killers, and in this short story, the cat is the main character. So
Interesting. You mentioned a newsletter and website. Where can people find you online to sign up for that?
Yeah, so my website is felicitygreenauthor.com, and you can find the newsletter tab, and then you sign up for my newsletter, because you actually get a free novella, which is called No Rest for the Wicked Witch. So you can start reading this series and see if it's something you'd enjoy. I really love writing newsletters. So I'm pretty good sticking to my monthly newsletter, and I always include a sort of a bonus thing, recipe, story or something. Just the last newsletter I sent, I did a recipe for Scottish cranachan, which is a dessert with raspberries, and I wrote about the summer solstice, because that's just happening right now. So
Right. I know for sure it's summer out there. It's toasty out there. Yeah.
Oh,
All
and I
right.
also like to, when you sign up, you get like a welcome sequence, and you see a lot of photos from my travels, because we haven't talked about that yet, but I do love
sure.
to travel to Scotland, and so I have lots of pictures of Tarbert and the places where the books are set, so you get to see that too.
I love to travel, and I don't get to do it as much as I like. So
Yeah,
that's
me too,
that's great.
unfortunately.
I'm like the only one in the world who gets excited when somebody says, "Hey, you want to see my vacation pictures?" I'm like, "Yeah, let me see." All right, so that's felicitygreenauthor.com. You can get all kinds of goodies over there. Well, Felicity, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a lot of fun, and we know where we can find you there. So best of luck to you in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. I had great fun chatting with you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. You can check out the show notes to find out all the information, links, and books that we referenced in today's episode. If you'd like to help support the show, I'd love for you to share on your social medias, tell your bookworm friends, share with your author friends, and help us get the word out. If you'd like to help out in a financial way, there are links in the show notes. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. You can find all episodes at bookshelfodyssey.com. And please follow us on my social medias. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Follow us there for more bookish content. And so until next time, happy reading, everyone, and take care.